Just in time for this conversation here and trying to make sense of what is happening in the country and the week that has been, some of the stories that have been making headlines and what that means for you as a citizen of this country. Of course, as we also mark 2 years of President William Ruto's regime, I want us to take a look at what's happening on the dailies today. And I start with, that is the People Daily. We are looking at top stories on this particular newspaper. We have Ruto reign of agony. Now taking stock of President Ruto's president's 2-year rule littered with litany of unmet pledges, punitive taxes, police killings, and aggressive public relations stunts. Now, this is a story that has been covered extensively on page 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, taking stock of from the foreign policy stunt, matters to do with security, abductions, issues to do with the economy, the pledges that were made, and all that. So there's quite an extensive coverage of the 2 years ever since he was sworn into office on this particular newspaper. You can grab the People Daily and get to read that particular story. And as we take stock of his 2 year in office, of course, court cases that have been very humiliating as far as the government is concerned, and how the tyranny of numbers has helped executive muzzle parliament since he took power, and also little to show for in the security sector amid abduction claims. This coming as President William Ruto said that his government, we will not get to witness abductions and the killings and throwing of bodies in River Yala, but that has not really ended. We are still getting to experience that. This is a story on the People Daily. Another story making headlines on this particular newspaper is State moves to gag People Daily. Now this is page 13 of this particular newspaper. Just like to take you through that so that you get to understand exactly what you're talking about here. Now, the Ministry of Information Communication, the digital economy, has moved to gag People Dailies for publishing stories critical of President William Ruto and his government. This is after the newspaper ran a report exposing the president for not living to his promises, resulting in far-reaching consequences on Kenyans. The move is seen as an attempt to not only intimidate journalists at the publication for fact-checking the president, but a threat to media freedom. The Broadcasting and Telecommunications PS Edward Kisiangani, in a deliberate move to gag the media house, has also asked Media Council of Kenya to institute action against People Daily for publishing a story that criticized Ruto's promise or to repair the infamous Killer Nithi Bridge immediately on ascending to power. Well, that's a story on page 13 of the People Daily. You can grab this particular copy and get to read that story. Yes, sir. When you are leader, then you are open to criticism. Another story making headlines here is how governors spent billions on foreign trips, travel allowances. This is a story on page 2. Of course, there was a report released by the Controller of Budget on how counties have been able to implement their budgets and also utilize the money that has been given by the National Treasury. That is a story on page 2 of this particular newspaper. Of course, People Daily here saying, let me just take you through that. Governors and members of county assemblies spent billions of shillings on foreign and domestic travels, legal fees, allowances, and non-priority items at a time when President William Ruto has called for prudent use of resources. A report from the Control of Budget shows that there was excessive expenditure by county governments on travel, which may be wasteful, amounting to 17.6 billion, comprising of 15.26 billion on domestic travel and 2.32 billion on foreign travel. That is a story on page 2 of the People Daily. All right, still on this particular newspaper, on the Ruto reign of agony. Now, the big burden was, of course, punitive taxation regime, forced housing levy, increased public debt, bloated civil service, ghost workers, high food, electricity, fuel, gas, and gas prices, police killings of young protesters, police brutality against media abductions, confusion in JSS and university funding model, collapsing health sector, extravagant foreign trips, and delayed funds to counties. On the extravagant foreign trips, of course, in his defense, they're talking about in search of jobs, because the president did leave the country last night to go look for opportunities for the youth in Germany. Let's take a look at what's happening on the Standard. The Standard, top story on the Standard, of course, Kenya Kwanza's broken promises, fighting crises. Now, on September 13th, 2022, William Samoei Ruto was sworn in as Kenya's fifth president after a hard-fought and contested election. Beginning today, we reflect on his tumultuous presidency and how Kenya has changed for the better or worse. This is a special report, of course, on page 6, 7, and 8 of the Standard. Now, another story making headlines on the Standard is Uncovered, Adani and his Kenya deals. Because this is a story that has been making headlines for the better part of this month. And yes, and also last month. Who is this Adani? Even before JKIA deal fires are extinguished, questions swirl as details emerge in the Senate that controversial Indian conglomerate is eyeing yet another multi-billion shilling deal shrouded in secrecy with State Farm K24. So what exactly is Asia's second richest man up to? This is a story on page 4 and 5 of the Standard. Okay, in 1988, Gautam is the year that Gautam Adani founded Adani Group, initially as a commodity trading before expanding into import and export business and diversifying its portfolio to coal, oil, ports, logistics, power, commodities, among others. Now, 10 trillion shillings is the net worth of Asia's second richest man, and which translates to over 80 billion US dollars. 117 billion is the cost of power infrastructure upgrade proposal by Adani Energy Solutions Limited, approved by the government, with aims to construct 371 kilometers of transmission lines and 5 substations in eastern and western Kenya as part of public-private partnership. 30 years duration that Adani wants to run JKIA in a takeover deal that will see it upgrade the airport, including construction of a second runway and a new passenger terminal. 230 billion is the estimated amount that Adani Group intends to pump into Jomo Kenyatta International Airport to expand Kenya's premier gateway in a controversial deal. Of course, this is a story on the Standard. You can get that particular copy and take a look at that. Let's take a look at what's happening on the Daily Nation quickly. And we have Gachagua isolated, of course, on the political front. Nyahururu declaration, some 48 ruling party MPs from Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua's backyard yesterday vowed to rally behind Interior CS Kithure Kindiki as the fight for the control of the mountain escalates. Page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation. Another story making headlines here, a striking nation inside Kenya's wave of protest. As President William Ruto marks 2 years in office today, his administration is fighting protests and worker strike that threaten his hold on power. Lives have been lost, property destroyed, and public services paralyzed as Kenya becomes a country of chaos and protest. At the heart of what is becoming the new normal for the Kenya Kwanza administration has been sustained backlash by citizens against controversial taxes and questionable policies by the regime. This is a story on the back page of the Daily Nation. Another story is legislation. Why you could soon find yourself in jail for defying elders. Now, defying a decision by the Council of Elders could soon land you in jail for 6 months and a fine of 50,000 if a bill currently being debated in Parliament is passed. And yes, Ruto at 2 hits and misses. It is a mixed bag of fulfilled and broken pre-election pledges. 2 years since President William Ruto rose to power on lofty promises, creating jobs for millions of unemployed youth and prioritizing the needs of the low-income earners. This is a story on page 7 of the Daily Nation. And of course, we'll be getting into the details of that because that will be forming the basis of our conversation this morning, taking stock of President William Ruto's reign 2 years on. But before we get into that, I want us to take a look at what is happening in the corridors of justice. The police job interviews, Kotai and State House meeting. This is page 2. This man Masengeli also on this particular Daily Nation newspaper. Apart from that, new case filed against the Adani JKIA deal. Activists and jurists challenge plan to lease out airport. A story on page 6 of the Daily Nation. Right now, still on the Daily Nation, we want to start with this particular story. Gachagua isolated. Nyahururu declaration. 48 ruling MPs from Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua's backyard yesterday vowed to rally behind the Cabinet Secretary, that is Kithure Kindiki, as the fight for control of the mountain escalates. My guests are already in studio. Of course, I do have Arnold Mariba, who is Strategic Communication Advisor, UDA. Thank you so much for making time.
Thank you.
Of course, Stephen Mwekesi, who is a governance expert. Thank you so much for coming, Stephen.
Thank you.
And Willie Kamau, who is a political analyst. Willie, how are you?
Eddie Kofiti, bro, how are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
That's good.
Okay, let's start with this one. Mount Kenya politics and exactly what is happening on, as far as the Daily Nation is reporting, and also what we've been able to see, members of parliament from that particular region. Those are division of Mount Kenya East and Mount Kenya West, but now we've seen people from Mount Kenya, Mount Kenya East actually coming out and saying, okay, we are joining the rest that have been calling for a new kingpin, quote unquote. Let me start with you, Willie. What do you make of this? A mountain divided? Why?
No, the mountain is not divided. The mountain is united because the mountain, there's nothing we are looking for right now politically. So whether we are divided or united, it's none of our business per se because there's nothing we want to achieve. I'm from that place, and what we want to achieve is the benefits of the government. This is number two. We have what do you call it? That list where people tick. We have a list in Mount Kenya that we are ticking of the people and the kind of politics we are thinking will be played in Mount Kenya. Number one, it was Dende Nyoro. So many MPs came supporting him, saying, Dende Nyoro, we are with you for 2032, but for 20, you will be the next big thing. Yeah. So apparently all the MPs are saying otherwise. So they are saying that they are supporting Kindiki. So we'll see up to how far Kindiki can go, and then we tick number three. So it's a sequence. It's going to run for some time before the next election.
Arnold, why is there so much discontent when it comes to not rallying behind Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua? He's been one man ever since the election, has been championing for the interests of the mountain. Yet people believe that he's not doing that right and want to rally behind Kithure Kindiki, saying that we'll be using Kithure Kindiki to be able to table our issues to the head of state. They have the second in command.
I think that is politics, and really we should not be putting so much focus onto that because, number one, we are midterm. It's just 2 years since the Kenya Kwanza administration came to office. There's so much to be done. I don't think this is the time for such. Secondly, we have got a structure of governance that really doesn't change, whether there is a Nyahururu declaration, whether there is a last week secret meeting that was done on Wednesday, allegedly done on Wednesday. The Nyahururu declaration, apparently, from what I know, unlike him who comes from the mountain, I hail from the other side where there is Kenya's oldest mountain, that is actually 24 million years old. These are the young mountain that is 3 million years old, is a little bit still active, and there's, young people can always be out there making noise. So from where I sit, I do not think that whether people met last week and therefore the Nyahururu declaration was a response to some secret meeting that was done on Wednesday. Those are local arrangements and just people trying to have their issues working around. Okay. But I don't think that a Nyahururu declaration can change the structure of governance in this country. That is actually anchored in law and how things function. So it's good, it's politics, and we give it the space it requires, but we shouldn't really be giving too much focus to it. Okay.
Yeah. Stephen, Arnold says we should not be giving too much focus to it, but this is the, as far as hierarchy is concerned in the country and issues to do with governance, the second in command needs a backing from the people that actually support him, but where he comes from rather. Ever since he got into office, there's been a little bit of objection to this, and there's been calls for the head of state to be able to, silence these particular rumors that they are not in good terms and all that. Yet when you see quite a good number of members of parliament from this particular region rising out, and from the UDA party itself, saying we are not rallying behind the deputy president, we want to rally behind Kithure Kindiki. What do you make of that? Are we supposed to be concerned
Brian,
in terms of unity?
My thinking around this, first to just say that I think this has been a shopping festival for the legislators from Mount Kenya region to call who will they call their godfather. In other words, there is no discussion here except who are we going to be going to their office to beg for money, to ask for projects and things like that. It has nothing to do with what the actual feeling on the ground is, where the people are aligned or where Mount Kenya politically is aligned. It is a bunch of legislators and lawmakers who are saying when it comes for us to go on a begging trip to ask for government to assist us to do something, we are choosing Kithure Kindiki and we are not choosing Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. That's the way I see it. But secondly, we are in a country whereby it's been 14 years since we enacted our constitution. By now, the politics of regional dynamics and using regional organizational mobilization to be able to get service delivery and to get benefits from government, that should have been dead by now. But what are we doing? 2 years into an administration, there is a definite and clear split amongst the leadership within the country, whereby it is categorically clear that people are divided because they are seeing one person is not able to deliver certain things that they require for the people of Mount Kenya vis-a-vis what is required for the whole Republic of Kenya. At this one, I fought the Deputy President because he's the one who started this thing. So when the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua started saying that we are shareholders, we are the people who are supposed to gain the most, already there was a charge that was coming from the ground up to meet the kind of talk that he was espousing. But right now, it's very important that we have Rigathi Gachagua change the script that he has, because right now when the MPs are lying to somebody else, it demeans his position as a Deputy President who's supposed to unite the entire country, not just the mountain as he has been claiming.
Okay, did he earn this discontent to some extent from what he's saying, from where he sits?
Thank you, Brian, for that question. There are only two possible scenarios in this case. We have seen, judging with the recent history, the making of the next leader. Number one, let it appear like you are isolated from top there. You know, let Kenyans have a pity on you for being subjected to, you know, that isolation from the guy on the top there, like what William Ruto did with Uhuru between 2017 and 2022. So he came, spoke to Kenyans, he said, yeah, nimetolewa kwa government, but guys, I am with you. That could be strategy number one, okay? I don't know whether it's, there is nothing like coincidence and everything is planned, so that's a possibility. The other possibility is this, the man at the top, at the helm of this country, the kind of politics he understands is just like his economic models of running the country. Yeah, like a divide and rule of the economy, so it's the same thing with the divide and rule of the politics. When they bring in someone like Kindiki, it's a clear indication that there's some divide and rule kind of politics in Mount Kenya, because apparently we have two sides of the mountain, the east side and this other side. So when they bring Kindiki, and I thank God all things work together for good, that they have brought in him. They've brought him in when we have like 3 more years into elections to try and hammer this unity of the people of East, to see whether they can be able to bring the rest of the mountain to come and support this person from there. Of course, there will be that tug of war, because where I come from, we say, when you hear a cow making noises, it's making noise for the calf, for its calf. So the people of East of Mount Kenya East are going to make noise for Kindiki, and the people of this other mountain, which is now where Gachagua comes from, will make noise for Gachagua. So that's a clear divide and rule strategy. But I think the people of the mountain are ready for this, and we thank God this is not coming 4 months to election. It's coming 3 years into elections. So I'm a frequent visitor here. So continue calling me. We hammer this thing for the next 3 years. Probably Kindiki might not even survive this whole thing for two months, and then they'll bring another person. Eventually, by the time they are going for elections, you hear Kimani from Moro, you know, or from Ishongo from Kiambu is the guy. So we are ready for this kind of politics. Okay,
let me, Arnold, why is it so important to rally behind, you know, a leader? And as you answer that, how did the Deputy President get himself to this particular position, whereby, because technically, from what we've been able to experience in the past, and when it comes to leadership and regional, you know, kingpins, once you have ascended to the topmost seat, then technically you become the leader of that particular region, and people, you know, tend to just rally behind you. But he's not been able to get that. His favorability among the Mount Kenya leaders has been, you know, shaky ever since he got into office. How did he get himself in this particular position, if you may?
First of all, I personally do not think that it's important to rally behind an individual at this particular point. It would be laudable if these efforts are actually being rallied behind issues of the people. Again, I feel like where we are as a country at the moment, there are so many issues that are work in progress. Others, we still are trying to find solutions around them. And I think that regional regimentation and regional balkanization is not really a priority. I do not think that the Deputy President really is probably responsible for what he is, because he was elected by all Kenyans. Yeah. And I still feel that where the country is, just get out there. That's why I'm actually feeling like if you look at that headline for me shouldn't be there. Okay. That's a small matter. It's an in-house, it's a housekeeping issue that should not really occupy front pages. When Kenyans are talking about going back to school, we have to hammer. And you know, those are members of parliament. They should be giving us, you know, one of their functions is actually policy making. We should be sorting issues to do. I know Parliament has been in recess. We should be sorting issues on the funding model. We have got workers out there. They should be co-working and helping with the president. The president is all over. Yesterday he was in Korokocho trying to work out and sort things. Okay. Members of Parliament should do, as in 2 years, I do not think that the people of Mount Kenya have had all their issues solved, for example, and now what is left is actually to try look for the next kingpin. Again, I am one of those believers that in the year 2022, the people of Mount Kenya dissolved the office of the regional kingpin and chose to go to Nairobi directly. When I speak about Nairobi, it's like for those who are Christians, they would understand this thing, that when Jesus died, the curtain in the temple was actually split into two, and that signified that them that wanted to go to God did not have to go through a mediator, and that they would go, people can go directly. I think if you look at 2022, the people of Mount Kenya defied the thinking that you must have a kingpin before you approach national politics. And since they dissolved that office, I do not think that it's actually in the place of a few people to actually sit down. Whether they are 48, whether the others who met on Wednesday last week, to actually and reconstitute that office. That office, if the people of Mount Kenya feel is necessary, they will actually make it themselves. The same way they dissolved it in 2022, is the same way when they feel it's necessary, they will actually work it around. Okay. So as of now, I do not think that the challenges in Mount Kenya have been solved, where people should be meeting in secret meetings and others doing declarations 2 years into the economy, for example, nationally. For members of parliament, for example, really do not belong to the areas where they come from. That is why they are called MNA, members of National Assembly, not members of Regional Assembly. Okay. These issues about I am a Westerner and on this particular, and yet the national agenda is collapsing. The national agenda is as local as it comes. So we are preoccupying ourselves with things that really should not be of priority as of now. Okay. Because our roads still need to be worked. We have got a national debt that really needs a lot of thinking. Unless they are telling us that their level of thinking and intellect really stops at regional organization, when we have got serious issues like the economy that need to be taken care of. Okay. People want to take their children to school. We have not worked that out. Food security is an issue. There's so much to be worked out. But we've just come out from the Gen Z demonstrations. And I'm not worried about the Gen Zs, if they will ever come back or not. I'm worried about these people seated on this table. These are millennials here. Okay. These are the people who really feel like they didn't do so much during the demonstrations, and they have got a point to prove going forward. Okay. These are the people I am worried about, of what they are thinking and what they could do. Can we do something that actually ensures that we don't go back to where we've been? All right. Yeah.
I believe it's, do I take a break at the moment, or I have one last round? Okay, thank you so much. Time to take a break. When we come back, we'll be taking a look at 2 years of President William Ruto's in office, and you know, taking stock of that, some hits and misses as far as his rule is concerned. There's been quite a lot of action ever since 13th of September 2022 to this particular date. All right, continue engaging us on our socials at Tamwai Brand, that is on X, at K24 TV, across social media platforms, and also on our WhatsApp line. We'll be sampling your feedback as we continue with this particular conversation this morning. We'll be back in a minute.